Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Education and Skills Service Transformation Committee of the 11th of June 2025. Welcome, everyone. Before I dive into the agenda, I just wanted to ask us if we can go around and do an introduction, because I know we've got one new member, and that's Councillor Oliver James. I know, and although I know Oliver's been around for a while and everybody knows him, it's just good practice to say hello and introduce ourselves. So, of course, I'm Councillor Mike Dirk from Cocky Ward. I'm the chairperson of the committee. What are we going to next, Gar? Let's have a look on the list. Bev?
Afternoon, everyone. Bev Hopkins. I'm the councillor for the Landau Board.
Caroline, online? All right, okay, sorry, Caroline. So Gareth Bosden?
Gareth Bosden from Democratic Services.
Councillor Linda Jones?
Hello, afternoon all. I'm, as you say, Lyndon Jones, and welcome everyone. Good to see you.
Thanks, Lyndon. Councillor Mike White?
Hi, Councillor Mike White, a councillor for Landau Ward.
Councillor Oliver James?
Good afternoon, everyone. Very pleased to join this committee. Oliver James, councillor for Cocket Ward.
Clearly the best ward in Swansea. And my ward as well, obviously. Rodri?
Good afternoon all. Rodri Jones, Head of Achievement and Partnership in Education, with overall responsibility for school improvement, school governance, amongst other things.
Thank you. Councillor Yvonne Jardine?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yvonne Jardine, councillor from Morriston Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Sandra Joy?
Sandra Joy, councillor for Uplands.
And now we're on in the room now with Councillor Robert Smith, Cabinet Member.
Robert Smith, Cabinet Member for Education and Learning.
And next to Robert, then we go to Kate Phillips.
Thank you. Kate Phillips, Head of Vulnerable Learners Service in Education Directorate.
And last but certainly not least, Sarah.
Hello, Sarah Tillman, Team Manager for Education Strategy.
There we go. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. I don't think I missed anybody there. So we can jump. Have I missed anyone? Oh, did I do you, Mike?
Yes, certainly did.
Yeah, yes, I did. Somebody in the room said, did I ask you? I thought I'd never forget you. And I'll introduce somebody else very important. As she sits down slowly, she just run across you literally from the Civic Centre. So I will talk a little bit more slowly while Kelly settles herself down. Okay, Kel, can you just say hello? Say who you are.
Hello, I'm Kelly Swallam, the Head of Education, Planning and Resources, and I'm sorry I'm late.
Fantastic effort, well done, Kelly. So we're looking at the agenda now. Agenda item number 1, apologies for absence, Gareth.
From Helen Morgan, Research Director, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Secondly, do we have any disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests? No one indicating there. Thirdly, we go on to the minutes for the last 2 meetings that we had. So if we look at the papers in front of us, we've got the minutes for the 9th of April. So we go through page 1, page 2, and page 3. And then we'll do the next set, if that's okay, do them together for the Thursday, the 15th of May. A 1-minute meeting. That's quite good, isn't it? We got page 1 there. Are we content for the minutes to be signed as a correct record? Can people say in the room and indicate, please? Nods. Everyone happy? No discontent?
Yeah, I'm happy.
Great.
Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you all. Thank you very much, unanimously. Okay, so we move on now to for information item, terms of reference, on pages 5 to 7. And there's just 2 things I'd mentioned really with the terms of reference, and that's that my proposal would be for us to keep the time of the meetings and the day of the meetings the same as last year, and for us to continue along the 6-week cycle. And I think that the feeling last year was, for myself and all committee members, I think, and importantly officers, that worked very well, that officers had a bit more time with the 6-week cycle, and the time was, and our attendance showed that was suitable. It was a good time for everyone. Are we content, everyone? Anyone got anything to add, anything to say? No, we're okay. Excellent. Great. Thank you very much. So we move on to agenda item number 5, and this is our work plan discussion. Of course, it's a verbal item, and at the start of the year, what we always do is look ahead at the year and consider which items we need to focus on in the work plan. So can I hand over to Councillor Robert Smith, please, just to set a little background there?
Yes, thank you, John. It's a matter for the committee to determine its own work plan, but I think, you know, we've had a discussion about a few themes that have struck us, Chair, as being ones that would be useful for the committee to move forward. One which I think has come prominently in the last few weeks is around reading and numeracy. Not so much perhaps literacy and maths, but reading and numeracy, essential skills as we know, but essential as the basis for everything in education. Access to the curriculum itself depends on getting those basics right. And I think it so happened, whether it's coincidental that this is becoming a national agenda in Wales at the moment, but I think it is something that we've identified, given the experience in Swansea, going back to at least COVID and some of the challenges that have been faced. Also, there are issues around catering, and of course, food and catering in schools. Now we know the universal free school meals policy has led to significant investment in school catering facilities, and I think there are issues there that can be looked at as well. There are other strategies like the right school, right places strategy. Again, we know that, as we've discussed before, demographic changes, the pressures, the changes in where people live, and how we make sure that the school estate is as efficient as possible and also keeps up with population movements as they are now, but also as they pan out in the next 5, 10, 20 years. I think it's a little bit of horizon scanning there. Whenever I see something like that, I think of Pontypridd High School. And in case people wonder, Pontypridd High School was never built. It never went further than the architect drawing. But I mean, you know, I do remember that there was talk of what became Penarfield Comprehensive in Kingsbridge. So that didn't happen, and I'm not proposing that we do it now, by the way. But it's just that kind of forward thinking and looking to where we might be. So I think those themes certainly have come to me, and I think we've discussed them, Chair, and I think the priority for me anyway would be looking at reading and numeracy as a starting point and how we develop that.
Great, lovely introduction.
Not how we develop, how we build on what we've got and develop further from where we are.
Great, lovely introduction. So, as Robert says, we've had a number of discussions, and that's with myself, with Robert as the cabinet member, with Helen Morgan-Rees and all the heads of service, to look at where we are and where we've been with this committee in the past, and areas that we need to sort of look at in future. And the committee is not going to change for the next 2 years. So one of the things we've done is we looked at this year and next year. So we're not worried about next year yet. We worry about that when it comes. But we've had a long list of topics, really, that have been proposed, and we've looked at those. So just to recap what Robert said, we looked at support to improve reading and numeracy, with an emphasis on practical maths skills. So what do we mean? We're talking about sort of basic arithmetic, reading, timetables, telling the time, that sort of thing. And officers can add value, of course, when I get some of this maybe not quite as accurate as it should be. And of course, reading as a bit of a gateway topic, without reading, then nothing moves forward. So you're not going to do any history, geography, science, anything unless you can read. So specifically emphasis on reading. And that one, it's really, it makes my heart sing a bit, because I remember a few years ago when we benefited from information provided by the then head of Pendrahafod School, Matthew Goulding, and he was so strong on reading for those very reasons. So I think that's a clear way forward. So support to improve reading and numeracy would be one for 2025, with the second one for 2025 to be an emphasis on food in schools. And again, officers can pick up on this in a minute or two, which is so critically important for all of our, and I keep saying this, is going on for, there was 38,000 children in Swansea schools, so it's a huge cohort of young people. And then early indicators for next year being school inclusion. So this picks up with rights, respect and responsibility. So the work done by officers last year was of course first class, that excellent example of co-production, and picking up on that, along with vocational opportunities. And so vocational opportunities with links to the Swansea Skills Partnership, and then looking at post 14, post 16, practical real world opportunities in that context. And in that, I know it's early days, but I will refer colleagues to the Policy Development Committee meeting we held on the 15th of December 2021, when we had a position statement on vocational education in Swansea. So that's a good starting point maybe for us as we look forward to next year. So it's the 15th of December, position statement on vocational education. So where are we now, and where might we go next? And before I call any colleagues in, then maybe for next year to look at a position statement, to look at an update on the strategic school provision plan. So right schools, right places, how things have moved forward, because of course that's gone through this committee previously, which, as Councillor Smith says, is of fundamental importance, because our Swansea, how quick is Swansea changing? It's changing before our eyes now at a pace again, isn't it? Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, if we're going to look at, obviously, I was talking about 25, 26. If we're looking at 26, 27, I certainly think another look at inclusion, but certainly a look at vocational education, because I think the work that the Swansea Skills Partnership has been doing, and some of the reports that have come back there show that there is progress being made. I still don't think we're going to be where we want to be. But there again, I think we need to be realistic and recognise if there is progress being made, then that is an important step forward, and it'll build its own momentum. So I think those two for 26, 27, inclusion and the vocational education, Chair.
Thanks, Robert. The committee members in the room and online, can I ask you to get thoughts ready? Okay, I'm going to ask officers for some insights first, but then can I get your questions ready for me, because I want to see you. I want to feel that energy that we always feel in these committees, which is great. So can I ask for comments for 2025? Support to improve reading and numeracy. Officers who would like to sort of add a little bit of value there. Rodri.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, absolutely. I think the cabinet member made the case clearly for consideration by the committee. But what we're seeing both nationally and locally is, reading and numeracy has to be front and centre in the focus of our school improvement team, but education as a whole, to support our schools. Reading in particularly, it's that skill, and when we see it now, it's about accessing the curriculum. When you get to comprehensive schools, have you got the reading skills to access that breadth of the curriculum? So it's further work in that space. And I think it's important to say that we're not standing still. It's not something that isn't being considered, but I think we've always seen with the SDC is that we look forward, and what's come from previous SDCs is that springboard to drive things forward with more pace and more drive on particular areas. So I think we'd be very interested in getting the committee members' views around that. I think what we could offer with both the reading and numeracy is, over the past 10 months now or so, we've been able to have a numeracy lead and a literacy lead within our school improvement team. So hopefully, if the committee would be happy, we could have initial presentations from the two officers showing where we've been focusing on in both the reading and numeracy and that wider literacy piece as well, to share that information with yourselves, but then work with yourselves then to see, right, where do we go next? How do we make sure that every learner has those right skills when they get to comprehensive schools as far as reading is concerned? Then with numeracy, Chair, I think you were right on the mark, really, about it's the application of skills and reasoning. We'd see as a really important driver to look at there for our learners. Again, numeracy being one, we are really seeing green shoots in the work that we've been doing with a large number of schools in the past year. To give you one fresh example, in the numeracy field, where we're working with 3 comprehensive schools yesterday on a cohort of pupils that have been identified that needed something that little bit different in the build-up to their exams. And the feedback we had from the learners themselves were really showing that we'd listened to what they needed in preparation for their exams. So learning from what we've been doing, but really getting the insight of yourselves as the members of the committee to see what product and what impetus we can give further in this space.
Thanks very much, Rodri. Green shoots, I like that. I mentioned previously, but I'm going to do it again. Experience on the governing body of Gendros School, when the head and lead teachers were talking to us quite recently, within the last 6 months, 8 months, about baby steps for bringing about improvement in reading. To see where the child is, individual children. So we see where the child is, and when we identify where that child is, we see where the barriers are, and then we work to remove the barriers. RAG rated. So the mum, dad, carers, the child, the school can see the child going from where he or she is, taking that step. And I really enjoyed, so I think that your suggestion to have the numeracy and literacy leads to come to the committee as a starting point would be brilliant. And can we see some of those practical illustrations, Rodri? It's helpful to see what's being done to bring about that progress. And every time there's a little step forward, there's less frustration and more engagement, Excellent. Okay, so can I ask about the food in schools? Can we have a comment? Kelly, thank you.
Yeah, you're talking about barriers to learning. Obviously, having a healthy meal as well, a lack of can be a barrier to learning as well. We know sometimes the school lunch is possibly the only hot meal or perhaps the only meal that some of our learners will have, for that day. So I think it is really important. There is health eating guidance from the Welsh Government out for consultation at the moment. So I think the timing of us looking at a review sort of works well with what the Welsh Government are trying to do as well. And we have quite recently entered into a new contract with our food provider, and we are looking more at local produce going onto our school plates as well. So there's a lot of things sort of like I said that are happening that I think we can pull together. As the cabinet member mentioned, we have just rolled out universal free school meals to all our primary schools from last September. There's a couple of capital schemes that we still need to finish off as well. But obviously what that's meant is we're delivering, a third more meals to our primary schools than we were before. We've had to look at menu options, and we do have some thought and feedback from schools about if that's impacted on the quality of meals potentially, and the level of waste. Tastes have changed. Potatoes apparently aren't very popular anymore. The waste costs have gone up. Yeah, there's so there's a lot of things going on there from a food perspective that I think we could get some steer on, and perhaps looking at the actual menu changes and what we provide, making sure it's what it's quality and value for money as well. Also, we've been trying to look at digitalisation for the service. There hasn't been a lot of change in the service over probably many years. So if we can try and get new systems in place and try and, sort of get things up to speed and get the cooks involved a bit more. And, personally, I'd like to sort of try and see if we can get perhaps like a focus group or something involving, perhaps learners and parents as well, school staff and some of the cooks as well, get some ideas together on how we can get a menu that's fit for the future, and like I said, providing that sort of local sort of menu as well if possible.
And that's an excellent summary there, Kel. Can I ask about the capital schemes? Are we talking about the schemes to get the catering equipment kitchens up to speed?
Yes. So we have got 5 projects that we're still waiting to deliver, and there's been various sort of things that have arisen why we haven't been able to deliver them. So our catering service are doing a fantastic job at the moment by offering alternatives to make sure that universal free school meal is being provided. But yeah, I can give an update on that as well, potentially as part of the review.
That's excellent. I can't believe the potatoes are not popular. There they are in my house. That's
All the pasta apparently now.
Yeah, right. Right, that's really, really beneficial for everyone. So over to committee members. So can I please see, I can see Councillor Mike White. Mike?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, on this subject, yeah, I believe it is important, obviously, children have a healthy eating, and plus it's only plus square meal that the child might have in a day. But I think as well, what's encouraging, lots of schools do sort of, where they got areas where they do sort of outdoor growing and things like that. So I think that would be an important way forward, but encouraging children, what they grow in is what they could probably eat as an healthy option within school. So they got the sort of roll-on effect then, that they've contributed to what they would like to have on the menus. And also, if possible, plus through the school council, they could do a question essay once a month or once a quarter with all the pupils to get their views on what type of food they would like to see on the menu. And I think that would be the best way forward there, an opportunity anyway. But in regards to the issue of the road of the programme, I got to be blunt, Chair, and I know the cabinet members as well as there, in regards to rolling out of the programme for the provisions. We have had issues where I've had experience of it, where departments are not talking to one another, and they've got a lockdown and there's no cooperation with the school on taking projects forward. But obviously, but I think things are now, people are starting to listen, but unfortunately, because of the issues, this has led to costs going up as well for the projects. But hopefully when Kelly comes back now, I might be able to throw a bit more light on that.
Great, thank you very much, Mike. I know that officers will pick up on the query that you've raised there, but thank you for your insights and your suggestions. Can we then ask Councillor Lyndon Jones, please?
Great, thank you, Chair. Can I say I'm shocked about the potatoes as well? And I think I've said before, one of the staple diets when I was in school, we had meat, potatoes, beetroot and gravy. And I'm still here. I'm still here. And I like beetroot.
We're doing all right, Lyndon, aren't we?
Absolutely. Can I say, all those items we've discussed in scrutiny over the last year, and in fact Rodri brought a paper about cookery in schools as well, about children learning cookery in schools, which we'll be going back to. But I absolutely for reading and numeracy. I think really important, because unless you get that real basic thing right, then nothing is right, is it really? And I think we picked up, certainly when we went to Dylan Thomas School, that obviously reading is an issue, and in the first year in that school then, people are really, they playing catch up. And I think those are two really, really important things that'll make a real difference. So absolutely for that, and also the food and catering in schools. So thanks very much, but totally support that.
Thank you, Lyndon. I think that it's important for us to always focus on future. So with future focus, so we got the scrutiny role, and I know the discussions have gone on there. So that would be a relentless focus of this work programme. It will be on what's next, where we go in next, and how to improve and modernisation and all the rest of it. So we are looking here. We've got Councillor Oliver James.
Thank you. Speaking about modernisation and what's next, I think what links in quite well with reading and numeracy and the ability to concentrate and school well-being for children is also the topic of phones in schools. I don't know if you've looked at this in the committee before. I would be quite interested to have that included in some way, if possible, because I do think it links in with willingness and the love of learning and reading. You know, if at home children have a lot of screens in front of them, and then often in schools, I know even in my daughter's class, who's in year 4, there are some children who take phones into school, which is a scary prospect in my view. I agree. In terms of cooking, brilliant. My daughter brought home a pizza today that she'd made in school, which is lovely. And yeah, the topics there are wonderful to look into. If we could possibly have a look at phones in schools and link it with, you know, well-being and reading and numeracy, to me that would be a bonus. But I look forward to digging into those topics as well that we've just discussed. Thanks,
Oliver. I think that I'll ask for a view from officers in a minute. One of the things that we would be, I think, I'd certainly encourage us all to focus on is the best practice that we've seen in recent years. So limiting the amount of topics so that we're concentrating on, and what happened last year again, of course, was we had 2 topics alternating. That give officers time to do the necessary work, and it's a lot of work that goes into these, and we're so thankful of the efforts that everyone puts in. And then to alternates, we go back and forth. That worked really well. But can I ask for a perspective on mobile phones in schools? I know that in the comp where I'm a governor, where we've recently implemented a policy on mobile phone, restricting the use of mobile phones in schools, so that concentration is improved. And is this common policy now across Swansea schools, or are we seeing it emerging slowly? Who can I ask? Yeah, Kate, please.
I can pick up on that in part because we looked at it last year as part of the work that we did developing the rights, respect, responsibility policy, and we did quite a lot of research around the use of mobile phones, the impact, and any kind of potential options around how schools manage that quite challenging situation. Probably won't surprise you to know that there weren't any really straightforward answers. I think it's quite a complex issue because a straightforward kind of ban has concerns for parents. There's a high level of anxiety around communication and so on. So it was something that we explored with governing bodies. We explored it through some of the workshops that we ran. And that's probably something that we're going to continue to look at as we roll out the work from the rights, respect, responsibilities policy, because you'll probably be aware that the committee concluded that work with the policy for local authority being approved by Cabinet, but that's very much the first stage of the work. It's going to take a number of years probably to embed some of that practice. We're looking at, developing relational practice. So, obviously, subject to the view of the head of service, I think it's really important that we keep that as a live issue, but we'd probably be doing that as part of our kind of ongoing rolling programme of work in relation to that policy, but linking it as well to literacy and numeracy is really important. And the comments that colleagues have made around the importance of literacy and numeracy, that the way that it allows learners to access curriculum obviously impacts on promoting inclusion. So
thanks, Kate. So the links with rights, respect and responsibility. So if we're going to be picking this up in 2026, this is something that we could dig into then, perhaps, Oliver. And the key thing would be then for us to sort of build on what we know and what we know now, and then to see how these policies are being implemented in some Swansea schools and how they're panning out. And at a time where AI is taking off, where we are digital and we are digitalising, so it's using AI and tech for positive education, beneficial education purposes, and not as a massive distraction for the kids. As you say, year 4 on my mobile. Sorry, miss, I'm busy. You know, no good. Councillor Robert Smith.
Yeah, I think that I'd echo that, but I think given what Kate has just said, and I really welcome the suggestion from Oliver in terms of looking at the use of mobiles in schools and different schools' policies. But I think given where we are and the fact that schools are undertaking various policies at the moment, that we park that one for a while until things are bedded down in schools, and then look at the evidence, well, what is working in different schools, and then look towards that becoming a focus for us in terms of, well, what does this say about where policy in Swansea needs to go from here? And I think it's probably a little bit early at the moment, given where things are, but certainly that's one that needs to be revisited at some point soon, Chair.
Thank you, Robert. Rodri?
Yeah, not to add too much, but this is something that the Senedd Petitions Committee looked at very recently, and I'm sure Councillor James has read that like myself, and it's one of those that they didn't get to a real conclusion really, because obviously there's such benefits that come from what you get from using the phone. But then you've got to think about digital inclusion, and then who has access to a phone, who hasn't. But agree with Kate and the cabinet member. Really, I think it's part of that wider space, and I think it all has a part to play. As in, literacy and numeracy is front and centre from a school improvement perspective, but the impact that technology is having and AI is having, and then there's work probably in the future for this committee looking at AI. Welsh Government have looked at AI in schools. Eston have just commissioned a thematic review of AI in schools. So there's probably in that whole space that when we're looking at use of digital within our schools, it probably then falls into the use of mobile phones, and it falls into the rights respect agenda, and then it falls into the curriculum. So it's all intertwined. So it wouldn't surprise me if it comes up in conversation as we go along, because I know our numeracy lead has been working with teachers on the use of technology within the classroom, not necessarily the mobile phone, but the different types of technology that you link with numeracy. So that there's probably we could probably keep the committee going for a number of years, yeah.
Yeah, definitely, I agree with that.
And given
Robert?
that we're reminiscing, I mean, I remember if I had to make a phone call when I was in school, it was 2 pence in a public call box. If you remember that, if you remember those days, 2 pence a call.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. He's younger than me as well, isn't it? Incredible. Thank you very much. Okay, committee members, I'm looking for hands on the screen. Does anybody else have anything else to say? In the room? Anyone in the room? We're looking quite content. I can't see any hands up at the moment. So then to recap then, what we'll be looking at for this year's work programme is to support to improve reading and numeracy, with that emphasis on practical math skills, with emphasis on food in schools, catering, and the list of topics, future focused topics that Kelly listed then, and then we'll worry about 2026 when we come to 2026, but as an early indicator that things could perhaps change and tweak. School inclusion, leading on from rights, respect and responsibility, and that huge agenda. As we bed in, as Kate said, we're implementing. The toolkit is settling down and things are happening on the ground. And then the second item would be vocational opportunities. And there would be for information update on Right Schools, Right Places, or the strategic school provision plan. Are we content, committee members? Can we nod? There's nods in the room. Everyone's nodding here. I can't see anyone not nodding, which is always a good idea. Thank you very much, everybody. So we've got unanimous agreement that we have a work programme there. And so we will move forward for the next meeting with that focus in mind. And I'd suggest, as Rodri said, that the next meeting perhaps could be an emphasis on the numeracy and literacy leads. Would that be acceptable? Is that a good start in place? Yes? Great. That is excellent. Rodri, go on.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. just to check on that one, if I work with Gareth outside the meeting, obviously I think the meeting falls probably right at the beginning of the school holiday, so I'll just need to check the availability of the numeracy and literacy lead in case they've left the country on the first flight as the school gates close. So if I can have just a little space to work with Gareth on that one, and then obviously I can link in with Kelly then if we need to possibly switch them over so that the first one of the new academic year happens to be literacy numeracy. If you can give me that flexibility, Jeff.
No, absolutely. Kelly's nodding. So we can decide the order outside of this meeting. But the exodus of teachers is something to behold, isn't it, at that point in time? Sandra, as a former teacher, is laughing in the room here. So excellent. Okay, so we move on then from agenda item number 5 to number 6, date and time of meetings. And we've got all of the dates of the next meetings for the municipal year laid out there. And all of them will be at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, as I alluded to earlier. Okay, so our next meeting will be on Wednesday, the 23rd of July at 4 o'clock. And I highly suspect it's highly likely we'll be looking at food and catering in schools, I think, because we won't be able to find a teacher in Swansea or anywhere else. And on that point, no one else is indicating. Everyone looks quite happy. I will close the meeting. Thanks everybody for your attendance. Thank you all.